Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack, Dave, and Sonny here. Actually, I'm flat capless, so Dave is the only one wearing a hat at the moment. So he's actually the odd one out here. Somehow I have forgotten to put on the flat cap before the stream, but I guess that's what the members get to, maybe enjoy before anybody else does. Hopefully you're all keeping well. Please smash that like button. Get your comments in as well, please, throughout the stream. Feel free to chat with us while we are recording this podcast, and as well towards the end of the stream, in part 3, we would like to take some questions or thoughts or anything who might be still listening by that stage. But I'm going to go to the other man beside me here. Dave, how are you today? Wednesday, 2 more days until forest, till you have to get into your lumberjack outfit to chop down some trees. How are you?
Yeah, Jack, I'm ready to commit some deforestation, on Friday night. I absolutely cannot wait to head up there and contain the forest, Jack. It's getting a bit wild up there with Steve Cooper, so the job is on us to, be the lumberjacks. But look, also never the odd one out, man. I'm the trendsetter around here, so, you'll see lots of people rocking these now in a couple of days' time, which I absolutely love. But yeah, I'm good, ready to get going, Jack. Can't wait for Friday, and I just hope we qualify for European football this week. Midweeks is just not the same without it.
Chop him down, chop him out of his job, lumberjack style, because he is in trouble, Mr. Steve Cooper. Sonny, how are you, sir?
Yeah, not bad. Been working very hard this week on my own channel, doing like nearly a video a day at the moment, just getting in that December hype. But yeah, I'm flat capless as well because if people remember last week, I was wearing one. It was my dad's. I said, "Can I borrow it?" He said, "No, it's his. It's his nice one as well." And I was just like, "Oh, fine." Even his other one, I was like, "Can I have that?" He went, "No, that's my nice one." I was like, "What?" So they're all nice, and I can't have them. So that's where he's obviously drawn the line under his flat caps being used by me.
Well, clearly he got jealous that you were getting all the compliments, for it, and maybe he's not getting as many, when he's wearing it. So that might be the case. But we're going to get started, of course, everybody, with a bit of quick fire news here. And I might take the first one, then sort of, toss it around. But Tottenham, apparently, right, are looking at a variety of center backs. This is a new one that I have seen, and it's that we are looking maybe still at Zabarnyi, who, of course, is now at Bournemouth, but he is originally one of, I think, Paratici's kind of young sort of talent, maybe ID kind of targets from the past. And I was a big fan of his, actually, when, I occasionally watch the Europa League and, the Conference League. I do kind of have a soft spot for those Ukrainian teams in Dynamo Kiev or the case of Shakhtar Donetsk. But Zabarny, he stood out to me during that time, especially for how young he was and the fact that he was playing, I think it's sort of like the head Ukraine or like, the starting Ukrainian center back at like 18 or 19 years old really did impress me. But since he's gone to the Premier League, actually, this might surprise you, Dave. I'm feeling like it's, I'm not saying he's had a terrible time or anything in the Premier League, but I don't think he's completely blown my socks off with when he's been here. I've seen him make some mistakes. I have seen him kind of struggle to deal with maybe more challenging strikers and, sort of forwards. I think he is still very, very young and has, of course, a lot of developing. He doesn't need to be complete right now, but I would say maybe while originally I might have been on the Zabarnyu train, maybe I might lean away from it. I think there could be better out there, or at least more proven out there at the moment. I think he's almost in the right place at the right time right now at Bournemouth, just sort of learning his craft and developing from there. But bit of surprise, to hear that maybe from me, Dave, that I'm passing on an original Paratici target like him.
Yeah, look, I am surprised, Jack. I watched them against the Republic of Ireland at the Aviva there. I think it was last summer, I believe. We played a friendly against him at the Aviva. He was absolutely phenomenal that day. I think he'd actually suit Tottenham's sort of style of play, high line on the front foot. That's the way Ukraine were against Ireland that day, and it was absolutely exemplary. I actually think he might have scored from a corner kick as well, if I'm correct, or I might not be, but if I am correct, I think he scored that day as well. They gave us an absolute hiding, and he was brilliant. Look, sometimes players can just make the wrong move to a wrong club where, whatever reasons, it doesn't work out, but there's definitely a player in there I actually think it would suit the way we play now.
Yeah, I'd hope he come in and, do a job. It's just, maybe somebody that, kind of like in that sort of Kavicha type area, right? Really unheard of, really kind of far reaches of Europe, type of talent that usually is one that I get really hyped for. I think since he's gone to the Premier League, I haven't exactly been blown away straight away with sort of him coming in here. I don't think, like I said, he's made a bad time of his, time in the Premier League. I just think maybe he still needs a bit more developing to do, and Bournemouth's not really the bad place for it. But maybe on to the next bit of sort of rumors and business. This one actually was just not on the script here, but I did see it on my phone just now and just a few minutes before recording. Chris Davies, one of our assistants, I believe, of Ange Posta Koga, is being courted by Swansea. Sonny, do you have any words for the Welsh and trying to take away our man, Chris Davies?
I mean, when it comes to Swansea, they've had a bit of a hard time of it. You know, they seem to get these managers, don't they? Like they've had Graham Potter, Steve Cooper. They attract these very up and coming managers who want the next step. And I mean, we've seen, you know, Klopp lost, you know, a disciple. I forgot his name, but they used to call him the Brain. That's what I remember. And you know, Pep lost Arteta, and he lost Maresca. So a lot of, you know, coaches, you know, when or managers, when they lose their coaches, you know, it does happen quite a lot because, you know, they've trained under the best people. It doesn't always happen like that because, you know, you've seen certain people like Paul Clement, again, was at Swansea, used to be under Carlo Ancelotti, better as an assistant coach than he was an actual manager because they're two separate jobs. The coach and the manager are two separate jobs. But, I mean, it's a bit annoying because he's just arrived at the club and obviously he's got might have an affiliation with Swansea or something like that. But at the moment, I'd really like to keep him, you know, especially in this starting season, maybe in a couple of years. But I feel like that unit that Ange has got in his coaches is just very well set up. Like even when Millie Jedinak was announced on his coaching staff, it took me a bit by surprise. I was like, you know, I remember him being like a tough tackling centre mid for Villa and Palace, especially. Yeah. And when I found out he's sitting in the stands, like basically with the bird's eye view, sorting the clips out, I was like, oh, this is a good role. Like this makes sense. I like this. It's a good setup. And also the thing is with Ange as well, I'm not sure how many of the training sessions he actually takes or how close he is with players in the training ground. I hear a lot of like he likes to keep a bit of a distance, not in a horrible way, but like a, you know, like a match day sort of thing. So you think that then the coaches then have that sort of, you know, importance. And then you've got Ryan Mason there as well, who gives that sort of Tottenham feel to the environment. So I wouldn't like to break that up, really. But, you know, Swansea are struggling and they'll probably have to pay through the nose to get him out of the club. You know, Daniel Levy's not going to let him go for pennies.
Dave, would you be worried about it getting broken up, that coaching staff?
Yeah, personally, I would be worried about it. This guy was assistant manager for Brendan Rodgers for quite some time. You know, his preferred coaching style is this sort of attacking sort of style of play. And Sonny's right. Posta Koga takes a back step. He likes to empower people within the club. I just call it letting people actually earn the money what they're there to do. You know, actually let them earn their money. But look, you know, I think it'd have a detrimental effect. I've no doubt he's absolutely crucial on the training pitch in terms of, you know, the training sessions and all that sort of stuff. You know, he's been playing he's been coaching the attacking brand for quite some time throughout his years. So I've no doubt it'll definitely take an effect behind the scenes for a short period of time if we let him go. This isn't the first approach by Swansea either. I think Tottenham knocked back an approach there a couple of weeks ago as well. So they seem to be gung-ho for him, which maybe speaks to the caliber of his coaching.
Probably does. Is it maybe a good thing, though, that we've been told in the past that Ange has worked with so many different members of staff and has had so many different assistant coaches that he can work with almost anybody, or he has worked with almost anybody in the past? He's not super attached to a certain sort of, you know, core of coaches. Like I guess maybe Pochettino does. Pochettino has his, you know, crew of guys that he rolls up with. You know, they all walked out of they all walked out of that Chelsea van, you know, when they first were being hired and everything, like a honestly, like a, you know, a van of clowns really, you know, being unleashed out of there. But Ange, he's been a solo man for the most part, kind of his time. He hasn't, you know, had that much attachment to certain people. Is that a good thing then, Dave?
Yeah, it is a good thing, but personally, I don't want what we've got broken up right now, you know.
Yeah, okay.
I think people look at what we've got going on right now, and I think, you know, you'll have various people from other clubs looking in, trying to take personnel away from Tottenham over the next season or two. But, you know, it's up to Tottenham to try and stay strong. Obviously, it's harder to keep a coach if he's being offered a manager role. You know, most coaches and the assistant managers and what have you not, you know, they all want to sort of go on and be that main man. So I've no doubt it's tempting for him. And look, he's probably licking his lips. He probably fancies it. You know, he's been a number two for quite some time in his sort of coaching career. So I think it'll be hard to keep on to him. But look, I do believe Ange will just, you know, get the next guy in. And, you know, when he came to Celtic, one of the reasons why he got the job is because he was going to work with the coaching staff that were there, rather than Celtic having to bring a whole coaching team with him. One of the reasons why he got the Tottenham job, is that he didn't have to bring. So I know he brought a few personnel, but he didn't have to bring a whole coaching team with him, just like Conte did with an analytics guy and everything else. He's sort of willing to work with what's in around the club. So it is a positive in that regard. However, I just don't want what we've got broken up right now. I'd like to see it, stay together for a few years.
Yeah, I can definitely get with that. Tottenham are looking to sign a forward this January, and it's going to be either a left winger or a striker. Do you have a preference between the two, Sonny?
Well, this is interesting and not a shameless plug, but I've got a video going live tomorrow about striking situations. I'm not going to allude to who they are because I don't give it away in the title or the thumbnail either. So that means people will go and watch it, won't they? Because that's clever. But I say that after the weekend, Sunday, the weekend, even though Richarlison had bounced back 2 goals, thought he played really well. Son, I did say on the left in a couple of my shorts and videos, I said that maybe Son time to go back out on the left, because against teams like Villa, West Ham, he's not a physical striker. He's not going to be able to hold the ball up. I don't think that's ever been his attribute. And when I think of Son goals, I think of on the left, curling them in, doing a person for pace, cutting back, all that sort of stuff. And that's what we saw against Newcastle. And people go, oh, he's not pacey. He showed against Newcastle. Don't get me wrong, people are going to go, oh, but they were tired or stuff like that. I'm not listening to any of that. Brendan Rodgers, with the injuries, he can still rotate, he can drop players, he can move it all around. There is possibility to do that. But left wing or striker, I think it just depends on lots of different things, because, I see in Tottenham fans now in my comment section being like, oh, what are we going to do with Kulusevski when Maddison comes back? I'm like, we worry about that when it happens, about who plays where. But we've got such a versatile squad with versatile players who can play, wingers can play on the left and the right, or a winger can play midfield and in the attack as well. So, and Ange likes versatile forwards as well. So I think I could see us signing either personally, I don't think we will sign an out-and-out striker in January, or maybe that waits till the summer. But if we can get in a forward who's versatile enough, like a Antonio Nusa, who I've done videos on, or, like a Santiago Jimenez, like someone who can play in that whole forward line, just to take some pressure off the players, because, with no Solomon, no Perisic and players like that, or Sessegnon, anyone who can sort of fill in that section, who, technically those 3 players, 2 are not good enough. One's definitely leaving in Perisic, and Solomon, we haven't seen enough of him yet, and he was a free, so he doesn't owe us. We've still got money to play for in that position. So I think, personally, I'd like that sort of forward as well. And I still think we need a proper out-and-out striker, because as much as I really liked Richie's performance, I still think in the last couple of games, if you had a Harry Kane on the end of a lot of those chances, or even the player who I mentioned in tomorrow's video, I think we would have bagged a lot more goals, killed off a lot more games like we did against Newcastle.
Dave, Jason Bell saying here, I've been seeing that we're looking for a player who can play across the front, but I think we need a striker. Do you agree with Jason Bell there? And what do you make of the fact that it seems to be this whole left wing or striker, and journalists are not really sure which one we are going to go for?
Look, I think everyone knows where I stand on the situation by now. I've been barking about it since the summer. I'd say people are sick of hearing me talk about it, but the reality is I agree with Sonny. If we had that striker, would have killed off a lot more teams easier, and we probably wouldn't have went on that losing streak. So for me, it's got to be a striker. I don't get this whole left wing scenario. Mm-hmm. The reason why, me personally, I think, the journalists have probably taken a stab at it, if you want me to be brutally honest. When you look at Tottenham's forward line, if someone plays striker, you need to bring in a left winger. If someone plays left wing, you need to bring in a striker. So it all really depends on where Posta Koga sees Son's future for me. I think that's why they're going with a left wing or striker. But look, for me, it's got to be a striker. I think many people don't want to admit they were wrong, like the journalists and stuff like that, last summer, advocating for us to sell Kane and stuff like that. That's why they don't want to sit there now and say we need a striker, because they'll be lambasted for it.
Because they know that Dave will come after them across all the different, tabloids.
Not just me, but,
day one will be the Telegraph. The next day will be the Daily Mail. It's 25
Can I
days.
ask you both a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
In a realistic world, if we had the money as well, who are you signing as a striker out and out? If you know, think, you know, I mean, because like I'm interested to see what people think, especially in the comment section as well. Like, because a lot of people are saying striker, but I don't see many names being touted in general, and two, I don't see like many links. You know, and especially if Spurs are we gonna bring in a younger striker like we did with Davies, or are we gonna go and sign someone who's quite proven? I'm just interested to hear what you guys think of like who that striker could be.
Dave, I know, is very keen on Vlahovic. How you know possible that is depending on how much Vlahovic wants to leave and whether we can continue to use that good relationship that we have with Juventus. I have maybe more recently been kind of keener on just whoever is, I think, willing to be a willing presser from the front line, but then also offer some type of aerial threat of, you know, of a type, because I think that's what we do need. Is I think if we do come up against a low block side, we do need somebody that can at least be, an ideal person to whip the ball into, or at least, has that type of movement inside the box where they are hard to track, they are hard to be aware of, and they just pop up with goals when we need to, in that type of sense. But also then I think, it can't just be a big tall striker that just sort of mopes about, walks around the pitch, kind of like, one of my favorites, Mitrovic, used to do. But you need somebody that can actually press and not detract from, the whole team press and all that sort of thing. And that's hard, actually, because sometimes, the big strikers, they do like to just sort of walk around the pitch and, be that sort of poacher and wait for their chances to come. So that's what I'm most curious about. Is I do want and do prefer a bigger striker, somebody that can handle themselves in the physical duels, but then also wouldn't hurt us in any way when it comes to his pressing and when it comes to the work rate. That's probably what makes Richie actually, sometimes on his best days, kind of nice, in that you're not going to lose any sort of, pressing when he's in the team. In fact, you almost get a bit more of an edge with it. But I've been actually a bit of a fan from the beginning of the season, just because I think maybe it was a hot take originally, but more and more starting to look a bit better. And it could be a realistic one. I do actually like Dominic Solanke. Maybe he's a bit towards the 27, 28 range, but I was hype on him in the beginning of this season because I thought he had a good end to last season, and he's having a good start to this season as well. So if he finishes strong, I'd maybe consider him as a Levy cheap signing.
I knew as soon as you were describing
the Richie mistake all over again.
As soon as you were describing the play, I was like, he's going to say Solanke, because that's who the video I've done about tomorrow is about. It's about go and sign Solanke over Ivan Toney, because I'm not sure what Dave will say here. I feel like I know what he'll say to me, but I think for money wise and knowing how Levy operates, Chelsea, Arsenal will want Toney, and I think Solanke is the cheaper option. Who don't get me wrong, he's not as proven, but I think he could be a perfect mold for Ange, and that's why I've spoiled the video now. But I go in great detail and sort of explain both arguments. That's quite a hot take for me. Saying, don't get me wrong, if we got a really good deal for Toney, then you'd snap. But I think Brentford are going to really I think that they're not going to sell him in January, and I think Solanke you could try and persuade to get him away from Bournemouth. And I think if you can persuade Brentford, it's going to be hard ball, probably like 80. I could see 80 million for him, maybe. Whereas I think Solanke, I'd be happy enough to pay 40, 50 for him. I think there's a good striker there and for a bit more of a reasonable price.
You could make the same mistake with Solanke, though, that we did with Richarlison, where you are perhaps overpaying for a relegation or, near the bottom of the table type striker, comes into a big team. And I don't want to take Dave's, points from him, but I also would say that Vlahovic is maybe not as inconceivable as you might think, because I have heard, some rumors that he is thinking about leaving, and also Juventus are a bit more kind of cash strapped than something you might think. They are willing to listen to getting rid of players for bigger money. So I'm not going to say that Vlahovic is one of those players that you can just be like Osimhen, like come on, like live, like be a bit more realistic. I don't think Vlahovic is completely unrealistic, actually, especially because we have Premier League attraction as well. But Dave, thoughts on maybe my Solanke, and then also, Jazzy Fusion agreeing with you, consistent in my desire for, or not agreeing with you. He's saying consistent in my desire for a left wing. Tyler saying Mehdi Taremi, if Porto got knocked out tonight from the Champions League, that could be a quick fix for January, potentially, Tyler. And then Jazz Fusion, Jimenez is a good fit. Dusan has been discussed. But Dave, I'll shut up now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, first of all, I don't really care who disagrees with me, because the man that really matters, ANGE Posta Koga, does agree with me. He made that change at the weekend. So that's all that really matters on that one. But look, when it comes to Dominic Solanke, I'll be honest, I don't rate him whatsoever. You know, he had huge potential coming through at Liverpool. I don't think he's ever sort of fulfilled it. I think, yes, he's on a hot streak this season. You know, he's going well at the minute. Guarantee you, I don't think people will be talking about him come the end of the season. I think it'll drop right off again. And look, for me, he's not the answer. You know, we're at Tottenham Hotspur. I grew up watching Tottenham always have 2, 3, 4 great strikers at this football club. You know, for me, someone like Solanke is just not the answer. If you're talking replacing Harry Kane, we sort of already made the mistake thinking that Richardson was going to do the job. We already made the mistake by going out young and bringing in Davies in here. Hasn't worked out. So for me, you know, if you're going to replace one of the best goal scorers in the world, you have to go and get one of the best, or look at some of the best in the business. Now, look, being brutally honest, there ain't a great deal out there, in my opinion, when I look at them, that I think can come in and do a job similar to what Harry Kane or what even Son has done for us so far this season. I think your options are limited if that's the bracket you're looking in. Look, for me, Dusan Vlahovic, I know Juventus want to try and do a deal for that Argentinian winger Sule, because they need to raise funds right now. Also, I don't buy the narrative that we can't get Dusan Vlahovic out of Juventus. We already brought Kulu and Bentancur out of Juventus. Most people will move from any other league to come to the Premier League. We've seen that. There's teams like Nottingham Forest signed Sangare with PSV playing Champions League football and stuff like that. So for me, you know, I don't think it would be a problem. It's just the problem that we have is, are we going to outlay the cash that Juventus want for their asset? Highly doubt it, in my opinion. I don't think they will. Being brutally honest, I actually think they probably will bring in a left winger, because it's cheaper to bring in a left winger at this current time in football than it is to pay for a striker, because there's so very few and far between that will bag you sort of 15 to 20 goals every single sort of season. They come at an absolute premium now. You know, you're talking any striker of that caliber, you're talking between 60 to 100 million. And I don't think Tottenham will outlay that money. So chances are you probably will see a left winger come in here, because it's cheaper to buy.
Evening and afternoon to Ian Ferguson. Tyler saying we need a proven guy for right now, and he will give us another 2 good years and will be cheap. But he's a perfect option for January, in my opinion. I think he's referring to Mehdi Taremi there.
He loves him.
He does. And if it ever were to happen, it'd almost be like, you know, Paul with ANGE Posta Koga. You know, we'd have to go to Tyler as, you know, the Taremi whisperer. But we do have some other news that we have to get through. Conor Gallagher open, or we're, you know, continuing that interest, I guess, in Conor Gallagher, Sonny. And if Chelsea are open to selling the player, we might be after him. So are you going to say no to Conor Gallagher? And also maybe another chance for a cheeky plug for you once again.
Muted, sorry about that. I'm getting absolutely shameless, aren't I? Just plugging videos on my own channel here. But yeah, I did a video on it today because I've linked that and the Celso news to Barcelona. And I mean, you guys have known my opinion of Celso, how it's sort of, it's changed a little bit, because I thought, you know, maybe we should have got rid of him, and maybe, and now I'm changed my mind a little bit after his recent performances. But personally, I don't really rate Conor Gallagher that much. I feel like he's quite chaotic. I don't think he offers much when it comes to defensive-wise. I don't think he offers much in an attacking sense. The only time I've seen him well in an attacking sense was in the first half of the season when he was on loan at Crystal Palace. And even I've got some good Palace mates, and they sort of said, like, people didn't realise how the drop-off was afterwards in the latter half of that season. So... and what I say in that video as well is, I say we might as well keep Lo Celso, because we won't get a good deal from Barcelona. They'll just want to loan him. They've got no money to spend. We need really Lo Celso until the end of the season. Maybe sell him in the summer and go for someone better than Gallagher, because Gallagher, for the price you're going to pay to get him out of Chelsea, he's English, he's young, he's one of their homegrown talents, and they'll need the money as well, because it's 100% profit to help with their FFP. I just don't think it works well. And people will say to me, oh, this is a new Chelsea, they'll deal with us. The last player who swapped between Chelsea and Tottenham for a transfer fee, actual money, was not Kudachini. It was not William Gallas, because there was Arsenal in the middle of that. It was Gus Poyet in the 90s. So you're telling me that Chelsea are now going to deal with us? Then we're not Arsenal. They just won't do it. And anyone who said, and what, like when people say like, oh, but Gallagher has energy, he'll be perfect for Ange. No, but I feel like that's just people haven't really watched our football if they think it's just energetic players just running around. It's a system of movement that I don't think Gallagher would suit. I mean, look at this Chelsea team. You've got him in a midfield with Enzo and Caicedo, who cost 100 million each, and he's the best player because he's just running around and making a nuisance, getting booked. Our midfielders need to be able to do a multitude of different things. I just don't think he suits. He's not better than Sarr. He's not. I think Højbjerg offers more in our team than Gallagher would. And I think people think this is a bit of a hot take, me thinking this, but I think it's logical to think that for the money you're going to pay, I think Chelsea want like 50 million for him. There's so many better midfielders than him in the Premier League, especially.
If you're going to be paying around 50 million too, like you'd almost rather go to Europe than and actually get, a real top quality midfielder. Whereas, like you say, with Conor Gallagher, I think probably his best attribute might be his energy and his pressing, but not much more than that, really. And I don't think he exactly has that sort of intelligence of movement, or even with his runs, doesn't have a great sort of incisive pass on him either that really can, take a defense out. He's just a bit of a hard-working player, I guess, and probably would be better suited maybe for that Marcelo Bielsa team of the past with Leeds, because he does have that man bun as well, and that would probably go well with that team. They were just full of crazy madmen running around and pressing everywhere with man buns, and maybe that would be a decent team for him. So I'd pass on Gallagher. Dave, don't want to guess, so do you have a soft spot for Connor here? No.
No. Look, Sonny, I'm not even going to bother wasting any more energy on it, Jack.
I was passionate.
Go ahead. It's not going to happen.
That was a good one. Ask Sonny then. Dane Scarlet might be returning early from his loan spell with Ipswich Town. Anything on that though, Dave?
Yeah, look, he hasn't started a game for Ipswich Town this season. Hasn't scored. I think he's made 11 appearances off the bench. But they're absolutely flying high top of the championship right now, managed by ex-Man United Kieran McKenna. I reckon they'd probably regret letting him go. He'd probably do a better job than Ten Hag at the minute, but. Look, he's not a part of the plans at Ipswich, but the problem we have is because he's been on loan at Ipswich and he already played that Carabao Cup game for Tottenham against Fulham, he now can't be loaned out. So even if he does come back in January, we can't loan him out anywhere else because you can't play for 3 clubs in one season because of a FIFA rule. So if he comes back, he's just stuck at Tottenham Hotspur. We've already got Davies, we've already got Donnelly sort of coming through and stuff like that. So I struggle to see where he's going to get minutes if he comes back to Tottenham Hotspur. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But look, this is why I keep sort of moaning about some of the loan moves we sort out for youngsters. We get highly rated youngsters that come through the academy. Scarlet was one, Parrott, some other players have been there and done that. But we don't find the right sort of loan moves for them. And, this is the result of it. Dane Scarlett's career is what would you call sort of stalling in front of our eyes from the talent that he did have, purely because we can't seem to find the right loan moves for the kid. So look, I actually feel sorry for him. I don't know what we're going to do with him come January, because like I said, if we call him back, he can't go anywhere, but you keep him at Ipswich, he ain't going to play. So I think maybe the thinking behind it is getting back, put him in the under-21s, let him play a few games there, maybe a couple of appearances in the FA Cup here or there, and get him used to playing the Ange Posta Koga way. But what I will say is, on the flip side, if the kid does come back, it's a real opportunity for him to knuckle down and show Ange his talents over the next couple of months and put his, sort of name in there for next season to make the Tottenham squad. So let's see how it pans out, but it's not. If I was Dane Scarlet, I wouldn't be happy with the situation at all.
No, and that's a great answer as well on sort of, the reasons maybe why it is stalling at the moment. And it's definitely not entirely his fault, I would say. Definitely a lot of it, definitely Spurs take responsibility for. Spurs looking at under 21 Middlesbrough star Hayden Hackney this summer. I have a theory, and I'm curious any of you can jump in on this. My theory is this could be some evidence of Johan Langa perhaps at work here, because he was, quite known for his sort of under 21 or kind of just younger recruitment of, players, especially that were more in the English pyramid, more kind of in the domestic sense than they were actually, from outside of or from Europe and everything. So I don't know. This is just a theory of mine that maybe this is already Johan Lang perhaps at work here, maybe giving us one of his targets that maybe he already probably had, maybe at an Aston Villa or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I've stolen somebody's point on that, but anybody want to bounce off that? Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Sonny, if you want to say it first?
I was just going to say, Middlesbrough, good team in the Championship. Michael Carrick, former Spurs midfielder as well. So I think that's what it's good to get linked to players who are young and playing in like dynamic teams now. Playing the sort of football that we're looking to replicate as well, even if it is in the Championship. But I rate the move. It's just knowing whether I see us obviously being linked with a lot of players across Europe, youngsters. It's just knowing if they can cut it in the Premier League. I think is the thing, because we don't want to get to a stage where we're signing up all these youngsters and maybe they can't cut it or they haven't got the potential. And especially with this guy who I think is like 21 years old, you've already got Sarr, who's 21 and, has been an absolute phenomenon. So it can go one or two ways. You can either like have a person who's going to be a next superstar or someone who could flop. But, I rate these sort of signings. I like us being linked to these players instead of just like has-beens. And that's probably why I'm a bit against like signing 31-year-old Taremi, even though like I've got a really good mate who's Iranian and he loves Taremi, and I'm like, no mate, he's too old. He's 31 now. That's it. I was like, he's
Tyler needs some help. He needs some company.
So
we need to
I
meet.
feel bad. I'm going at Tyler, but yeah, it is what it is.
Dave, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Look, Jack, I see where you're coming from with the Johan Langa, because when you look at his recruitment at Villa, his homegrown recruitment really stands out in that area. However, it is an area that Tottenham have trying to be on before he even came here in terms of under Paratici. We signed Herbie James from the Man City Academy, Callum Logan from Ipswich, Dunsop Bell, Will Lancashire, people like that. We have been pulling players from other academy before Johan Lang even got here. So I wouldn't solely put this one on Langa or Large, whatever you want to call him. I really don't care, but I wouldn't solely put this one on him. But look, when it comes to this kid, this is a kid that a lot of the big six clubs are actually tracking him. He's actually been out injured. And since he's been out injured, a lot of them clubs haven't bothered sending representatives to the game. So, that's where many people think all the top sort of teams in the Premier League, all their scouts are actually watching this kid. Now, look, very interestingly enough, he actually he's playing under Michael Carrick, former Spurs midfielder. And where he plays is in that deep role where Michael Carrick used to play, spraying the ball around. And his biggest asset is actually his passing ability. Is more of like what would you call a deep line sort of playmaker. So it'll be interesting to see whether we bring him in. I know we were looking at Adam Morton from Blackburn, who's another sort of fantastic prospect as well. But I would say there's merit to one of these guys, Hackney or Wharton, coming in here, because we do need to bring in that sort of next flood of homegrown players, to really bolster out the squad. When you look at our squad, that where we are actually really let down is the homegrown quarter. It's nowhere near good enough or strong enough. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe some of these being brought in to fill that. So look, let's see what happens. He's a kid I'm going to keep a bit more an eye on. Is he like a Michael Carrick? Sort of plays in that deep role and can basically dictate the tempo of the game. It'd be interesting to see, but there's a lot of clubs tracking him. Now, personally, I believe he actually doesn't want to move anywhere until the summer. So if there would be a deal put in place in January, it will be, we might buy him, loan him back for 6 months just to secure his signature and bring him in here in the summer. But I don't think you'll see this one happen in January for sure.
No, but fantastic answer from you there, Dave. Everybody, please, plaudits to him. And another reason to become a member, if looking at that sort of answer from Dave there. Sonny, you are the new official penalty taker for Spurs. And with your goal, the real Sonny or the other Sonny, I'm not sure which one was first, but he is now the 7th player to score 10 plus Premier League goals in 8 successive seasons in a row. The 7th only player to do so. I mean, it's another sort of record and another club that's very small and very, it's quite elite, and maybe just more of a symbol of Sonny and how elite he is.
I just couldn't believe.
Sorry, Dave, go on. I was just going to say, quick spoiler, I'm not really going to have my say on this because I actually have that stat and a question, sort of on the pre-match build-up. Does Son now go down as a Tottenham legend when you look at that stat? So I'm going to reserve my answer for that. So we'll let Sonny take this one.
I just think like the fact that he's been criticised this season as well and gone on and scored 10 goals is just shows how impressive he's been. I think I'd like to see him more on the wing. I keep stressing that. I think he does some of his best work on the wing, but then we're versatile enough to play him for certain games through the middle, certain games on the wing. But I'm really happy for my namesake, and I think I was called Sonny first because I feel like the Sonny nickname for him came a couple of years after, and I've been called Sonny since 1996. So
that's probably you did get the few years on him. There you go. But once again, joining another list of incredible names and just proving that he is definitely one of the best players I think I will ever see playing a Spurs shirt. Destiny Udogie signing a new contract for 5 years with an option to extend an additional year, and also Spurs looking to extend Pop Matasar's contract very soon as well. Dave, I think Daniel Levy and crew must be very impressed with these young prodigy signings, and they're now realizing that they're going to have to secure their future before they get stolen away by the Real Madrids and whatnot of the world.
Look, that's exactly why we're tying them down at contracts. Look, anybody can look at, the likes of Destiny Udogie and Papa Matasar and just know, as long as they keep the right attitude towards the game and don't get carried away with the hype and, the lifestyle that sometimes can come with football, these two guys will go on to have very, very big careers. And it's a shrewd move by Tottenham to try and sort of tie them down to long-term contracts, because it means if Real Madrid and people like that do come calling, ultimately, we can sort of price them out in the market for as long as we can. A bit like what we done with Harry Kane. We only sort of really sold them sort of, last chance saloon situation. We managed to stave clubs off for years because we had him tied down to a contract. And I think there's obviously something to do with that. But also there was some sort of rule change yesterday. I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
And I do think it may partly have something to do with that as well. I'm still trying to work out the intricacies of it, and that it's very, very complicated. But I do think it has something to do with that as well, that we're panicking or we're rushing ahead now to try and get these sort of players tied down to long-term contracts. But look, Destiny Udogie's tied down to Tottenham now to 2030, which is absolutely incredible. What I do love is I believe it was Madison and Pedro Porro went in underneath his Instagram post on it or something. And Madison was saying, don't spend it all at once. And Pedro Porro was saying, you can afford to buy dinner now. So I love the camaraderie and the fact that players in and around the club feel like he deserves it. It's absolutely great to see. And I'm glad we're actually offering players long-term contracts that deserve it, because in years gone by, which is the massive reason why we're still in this same situation we're in right now in terms of squad depth and everything else, is because we've offered players long-term contracts that just haven't deserved it. So I'm glad to see, kids get it that warrant it.
Maybe James Madison then can order maybe an extra, at the chippy or, an extra side of something, because Destiny Udogie is going to be paying now. Sonny, any word or any sort of thoughts yourself on Destiny Udogie being locked up as well as Pop Matasar potentially soon?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a thing about Sarr saying apparently he can become homegrown in a year or two, so that will help our argument with that quota. Yeah, good to sign him down. I think I saw something saying Udogie was on less than $5,000 a week in pounds, so maybe he did need that pay rise. So if it was that low, I think Levy's been cheeky and he's probably gone like, yeah. I bet he's only on like 20 grand, which I know sounds like a lot in general, but not in the world of football.
Probably wasn't one of the Lamborghini drivers, going into the
literally got a lot all these players down. I mean, with the whole contract thing, I think it's changed that you can sign people up to those long-term deals like he's on, but it's the case of the transfer. You can't spread the fee over more than 5 years, which has been the case for, even when we sold Bale and Modric to Real Madrid, they were paying that back over a long period of time because obviously, especially Bale, it was like a record deal at the time. But, Chelsea were finding that loophole. I think everyone's might have seen the news that they saved around £130 million by spreading the costs over in this way. But I think it's a bit different because we've only there you go, Udogie and Sarr on like that's actually nuts. But
Sarri's on 10K a week as we speak right now.
It's actually nuts. But I think doing it this way, like look, I think I agree with signing players to long contracts if they, one, deserve it, and two, you want to stay away like other clubs, because Udogie's been probably the third best fullback to the second or third best fullback in the league next to Walker and Trent. obviously Pedro Porro makes the top 5. Don't worry. But I think it just makes total sense. Lock them down and keep them here. But I don't agree with the loophole of like spread. I think spreading the transfer fees over 5, 6, 7, 8 years is stupid. It's good that we've got a player to 2030 that we actually want, unlike Chelsea, who've got about 10 that they don't.
I love that we can basically cover Udogie and Sar's, wages on basically neck oil, sales a week, just from Beavertown really would cover it. So that just shows, really saving Beavertown is basically paying for it itself. In that case, yeah, it looks like they definitely deserve it. And also it's nice to see that we have these young talents that are being secured in this sort of manner, where perhaps in the past, I would say a lot of some of my favorite players that actually got me to fall in love with Tottenham in the first place ended up kind of leaving, quite early in their careers. In the case of Luka Modric, Gareth Bale, those types of players. And maybe this is a chance for us to, give them more of a, a feeling that, Spurs is the right place to be. Spurs is the right place to stay. Whereas back then, I'll be honest, it didn't exactly, I was sad to see Bale and Modric go, but I didn't necessarily blame them. I felt like they were kind of almost gotten too big, in terms of their real status and profile and how good they really were. But now, like with all the other brilliant players we have around the team and everything, they would probably think this is the right place to be. So that's a huge change.
100%. Just quickly, I was looking at Tottenham's wage bill there, and the wages players are remarkably. We've only got 7 players on over 100 grand a week. The rest of the squad are all under 100 grand a week, which is absolutely sort of mad to think in the Premier League in this day and age for a team, that's inside, that's in the top 6. Yeah. And 2 of them, Hugo Lloris and Ivan Perisic, will probably be out of here in January. Yeah. So it's absolutely madness. So. Well, we definitely have the wage budget to be able to go after a top player in the January or the summer for sure. Because just looking at there, with all the signings we've made over the last couple of years to rotate that squad, we've actually lowered the wage bill at Tottenham.
Yeah, get rid of an Eric Dyer wage, some Tanguy and Dembele wages, and then all of a sudden you got enough wages to bring in your daddy Dusan into the house. Batty,
Dyer and Davies.
Yeah,
more than Bentancur, Vicario, Johnson, Basuma, Van de Ven, Udogie, Emerson, Gill.
Do you think these are reasonable wages, like in the grand scheme of the Premier League? Because I see some players on like I always bring Chelsea up because they just love splashing the money around. But when they would put like youth players on, like Ruben Loftus-Cheek on 100k a week, I was just like, you got to earn the money. Like, don't get me wrong, like Udogie has earned this. He's earned this new deal. Being on less than 10k a week as a professional footballer is a bit weird. I don't mean like it's weird. I always talk about this when I talk about wages. I say like it's the only industry where you talk about it split weekly. Like I don't go around telling people what I earn, but I don't go, I'm on this. I go, I'm on this per year, or I take home this per month. But with footballers, it's per week. I don't know how that came about, but I just think, you look at some players on like Marcus Rashford keeps coming up at the moment. He's on like 350k. He's not worth that. Like these players they'll reap their rewards. Gone are the days of like Perisic on all that money. Has he earned that? No. Will the players like Maddison and Mickey van der Ven earn their money? Yes. Like it just makes sense.
I think this is what was frustrating me and Jack for the last couple of years. We've done a lot of diving into some of the wages these guys are on and the contracts that they were given in periods where they haven't really deserved it, So it's been one of mine and Jack's biggest frustration down the last few years that we've got squad players on here at 80, 90k a week. For what? What have they contributed? I just, it's absolutely madness, but it's good that that's getting sorted out. I think we are now getting to a position where we were under Pochettino, where, a lot of the players, not all of them, a lot of the players earned their contract renewals, earned their sort of wages, and they were normally given when other clubs came sniffing in and around for them. Sign a new long-term deal at Tottenham, we'll up your wages and put you on what you would go and get at these other clubs. So we are slowly getting back to that. We just another 1 or 2 transfer windows, and we'll probably be back in that sort of situation, hopefully.
Can I highlight with Tyler? I think like He said 10K a week is still incredible. Yeah, I made it sound like no. I want more than that. I earn more than that being on this podcast. That's what the guys are paying me to be here tonight.
He's a shrewd negotiator, Sonny is. He's not gonna flinch at it. He's gonna ask for 20. But everybody, I think we wrapped it up there. Plenty in the news there, so I'm glad that we had a good discussion on it and some much better answers that I was even expecting actually on some of the news. So credit to both of you. But we're gonna go into part 2 where we're gonna be asking ourselves about Richarlison, his own career, and whether he can actually save his own career in our season. Huge night Sunday night for Richarlison, and a big call by Ange to move Sonny back out wide and Richarlison into that central striker position. I'm going to go to you first, Sonny. Was this a stroke of genius by Ange to move Richarlison into the middle? And can it ignite perhaps a surge up the table? Or is this just a flash in the pan type of performance from Richie and maybe something that Ange can't really rely on?
I mean, it's not the first time it's happened this season. You know, Richie has played games. He's played him on the left. You know, put Son through the middle. He's been tinkering with it for a while. But the fact that this was his first 2 goals with his feet really, really was quite strange. Like when someone told me that, he hasn't, like during the weeks, one of my mates was like, he hasn't scored with his feet, and then he scored twice. I was like, really laughing at him. And he's a Liverpool fan, so he hates Richardson because of the Everton connections. But even I've still got a bit of pinch of salt with this, because I hope he does kick on now. I hope he does score another 2 against Forest, for example. But even the goals, when he scored them, there was part of me which was like, with both of them, I was like, oh, he's been a bit lucky there. Like even the first one, he sort of loops it really complicatedly over over and into the goal, and I was like, on the camera angle on the TV, I was a bit like, has it gone in? Like I was like looking over, and then for the other one, it's a stroke of genius / something that is incredible, because his touch is a little bit dodgy, but by doing it, he sort of invited Dubravka out and then slotted it past him. So, I mean, it was an amazing ball from Pedro Porro as well. But I really hope he can move on after this and keep going. But as I keep saying, I still think we need a better striker. I'm not sure he's going to hit the numbers that can really, help us in the long term. I think he's okay as an option, but for £60 million, you don't want an option. You want that to be your star. But I don't know. He's got a crack on now, and the fact that he scored more goals than Martinelli. I think he's on the same as Jesus. He scored more than Højlund. He scored more than Rashford. So he's in good company. He's getting there. It's just he needs to go on now and improve to the fans who have really stood by him that he is the main man at the roast dinner.
Dave, could this pigeon save our season and maybe even save his own Spurs career? Was this a flash in the pan performance from him?
Look, this is the problem with Richie, right? We've been here before, and even I've been guilty of it. Hopefully he can kick on now, and he never really does. But when you listen to what he said about, his injuries, come out since the game and sort of spoke about it, that he couldn't kick the ball, right, in fear that he'd do some more damage to the pubic area, So, and he said since the surgery, he's been able to strike the ball properly and stuff like that. So, look at Sonny, right? He played through injury massively last season, and you can see how much it can actually affect the players' performances and what they can do on the pitch and how much it can really limit them. So, look, hopefully now we see a much freer Richarlison. Posta Koga alluded to it, that he looked so much better in training and stuff like that. But look, Jack, I tried highlighting this before, and again, I got called mad and stuff like that. But the plan was never to play Sonny down the middle. The plan was always to go with Richie once we sold Kane. The reason why Posta Koga adapted is because obviously he knew Richardson was injured at the start of the season. It didn't work out. That's when Son inevitably ended up being moved into the middle. But at the start of the season, Posta Koga went with Richardson. And believe it or not, whenever the guy's fit, Posta Koga tries to get him in the team when it's on the left or up front. So I think Posta Koga actually likes the guy and has a bit of faith in the guy, to be honest with you. But look, when it comes to Richardson, I do think there is a bit of an unfair narrative around him as well. He's got 3 goals, 3 assists so far this season. Don't get me wrong, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible either. He's got more goal contributions than Brennan Johnson, and I'm guessing probably Kulusevski as well. So for me, also you stack him up to other players, Rashford more than him, Hoyland, who came for massive money, more than him, more than Martinelli, who gets praised every single week, you know, and then there's a couple of other players there as well. So when it comes to Richards, he's actually having a better season than some of the players that continuously get praise and stuff like that. So for me, I do think there's that sort of unfair narrative around it. But look, at the end of the day, Jack, it's up to Richarlison. All the club can do is hand this guy opportunities, you know, to go out there and showcase his talent. It's actually up to him once that opportunity comes around, whether it's 5 minutes or whether it's 90 minutes, to showcase his ability, showcase the talent that got him to Tottenham Hotspur. So far, he hasn't done it. Look, I would like to write it off to injury, but only time will tell. And, you know, him continuing to back it up and score goals down the middle will dictate, in my opinion, where Son plays in this team. If he doesn't score, Son will be shoehorned back into striker. If he does start scoring, Son will stay out on the left. But what I will say is every Spurs fan should be absolutely willing for Richarlison to come good as we need him, whether people like it or not. You have to get on board with it. Yeah. Son, he's going to miss Man United. He's going to miss everything. He's going to miss Brighton. 4 to 5 games for the Asian games over January and February. So, you know, we're going to have someone to play up front and bag us goals. So the opportunity is there for Richarlison. And I also believe Posta Koga was pre-planning for that situation by trying to give Richarlison that bit of confidence down the middle. I think you'll see him play here most of December into January and February until Son gets back to AFCON or from the Asian games. And look, Son could miss even more than that because you'd probably say that he probably needs a rest period after the Asian games as well. So, you know, Son's going to be missing for 5 to 6 games at Tottenham Hotspur. So we have to persist with Richarlison up front and get goals out of him regardless. It's our only option.
So you're almost kind of, you know, towards the end there, kind of pointing out that even if you're Richarlison doubter, you almost have to be hoping more than ever that this is the time that he kicks on, because we kind of need him now more than we ever have, you know, in the past, right?
Yeah, 100%, Jack. You know, what else are we going to do? Who else are we going to play up there? People keep telling me Davies, but Davies isn't ready. He's just not ready. He's nowhere near ready. You know, regardless what people think of Richarlison is a better player than Davies. No doubt about it. And at the end of the day, we're going to need Richarlison. So Posta Koga has to try and make this work for the next couple of months at least. And that's why Richarlison will probably be here until the summer, unless Tottenham decide to find something and go for someone in January, bringing a striker. But also, when you look at left wing and striker, that probably also depends on whether Richarlison finds form this month or not. But look, at the end of the day, Jack, you know, everyone around the club loves Richarlison. Anytime he scores, he doesn't really want to go mad into the crowd. But after games and stuff like that, you keep seeing Son, Maddison, all these other players, they keep pushing them towards, you know, the crowd to take the adulation and stuff like that. And one thing I'll give Richarlison, in years gone by, I've seen so many players give up at Tottenham Hotspur. Despite the, you know, the fans being on his case, despite the continued bad performances for a year and a half. He has not given up. He still goes out there and still tries his best, which I'll always give a player credit for, because I've seen too many players give up at Tottenham Hotspur. But like I said, we have to make it work. We just have to. And hopefully now that he's back from surgery, he can really sort of kick on. But also, I sort of don't understand why people are so quick to get him out of the club. I mean, if we're going off how long Dyer's been here, he's got another 8 years to go. And if we're going on how long Celso has been here and people still call him from start games, he's got another 2 years on top of the 2 years he's already been here. So get off his case, unless you're going to get in other people's case and get them out quicker before him.
He might also have far more assists and goals, actually, when you think about it, than Lo Celso and some of these other guys have actually had in a Spurs shirt too. But yet Richie's the one that quickly is first on their list to go. Dreadlock74 says, give Richie until the summer, but have a devastating striker tapped up at the ready. He could surprise us, though, in this ANGE system from now on. However, and then Ed Sweeting saying it would be amazing if he goes on to get another 10 to 15 goals this season, but I'm not holding my breath. He is very much a confidence type player. Maybe the 2 goals is enough to get him started. I think he's the definition of a confidence type player, Ed. But even when he has had good games and, you know, match winners and things like that, he still hasn't exactly kicked on from it in the past. He's either picked up an injury, you know, shortly afterwards that was really inconvenient, or he was somehow, you know, or some way taken kind of a bit out of the starting lineup, wasn't maybe given as many chances as he would like. But even then, the chances that he was given, he would miss those chances and he would, you know, not bury some of those opportunities that we do sort of expect, you know, a top striker too. And that's where it's been this kind of confusing arc with Richarlison, and that there have been opportunities for him to kick on. There have been opportunities for him to sort of kickstart his Spurs career, but he hasn't taken it for either his own fault, maybe the fault of the manager, perhaps the fault of just being unlucky and things not really going his way. It's been a variety of reasons. And this sort of feels like, you know, despite this, you know, surgery and everything going well for him, and maybe now him feeling more like this is really his time to show his worth, Spurs fans have really lost patience, I think, already with the guy. So I just think he has to. I just kind of think he has to take his chance. We've already said that, you know, a million times before, but it really does, you know, mean something now this time, that he does really need to take advantage of this, just this spell of games. Just also the fact that he did show exactly what we had been missing in previous games, with just having that sort of guy that is willing to roam around the box, just, you know, be a nuisance to defenders. You can see that he's, you know, happy to get into the physical battles, the physical duels with players too. It's just something that we had been missing in recent games. And I just hope that Richarlison just uses this momentum and uses his form and ends up, you know, kind of taking these chances. Because if he doesn't, I think he will be gone by the summer. I was sort of expecting him actually to be out of here in January, to be honest. But, you know, maybe these are the chances, and these are the moments, these are the nights where all of a sudden the narrative has changed, and all of a sudden, you know, your trajectory has changed. You did make a point towards the end of that, though, Dave, that weirdly enough, Ange, despite maybe the lack of confidence from the fan base, Ange has shown a lot of faith in Richarlison. He's picked him on the left. He's thrown him in at striker. He's, you know, tried to get him in there however he can. So if anybody has confidence in Richarlison, it's actually probably Ange more than anybody else, because he's continued to try to work him in there. So that's also a good point to it. Recently, though, Sonny, we have sort of complained, though, as fans, right, that we were sort of frustrated that with Sonny at striker, we were kept trying to score the perfect goal. Can Richarlison solve that problem for us? We ended up scoring 4 against Newcastle the moment he came into the team, and we weren't trying to score the perfect goal. We were whipping in balls into the box. We weren't just passing around them. We were trying different things with him in there.
I mean, Richarlison could have had a few more goals. There was the one where he wasn't sure whether to go with his foot or his head, and he sort of did a cartwheel, which was quite funny. I think he just offers a bit more of an aerial presence than some would through the middle. Son is if you're playing Son through the middle, it's got to be like a poacher style finish. But then I think Richarlison can offer that if he is firing on all cylinders, but then offer that aerial ability as well. And also, I think Richardson is quite good from corners. I think we've been lacking from set pieces. You know, keep joking about him not scoring with his feet, but he's good at scoring with his head. He scored against Sheffield United and Fulham this season from corners, I believe. So I think he does offer something a bit different, but he just needs that confidence to, you know, even there was a move early on in the game where Dogie back heels it to him, and he goes to strike it first time, and usually with Richardson, he wouldn't do that last season. He'd like divvy on it a bit more, so it seems that his decision making is getting slightly better in this team, and he's getting more chances.
Down to his decision making. He said quotes there, I think they were put out yesterday or today, where in an interview where he said he didn't strike the ball because he had fear that he was going to aggravate his injury even more. Since that's gone, he's back striking the ball properly. I think it's actually down to what he says it is, rather than down decision making. He didn't want to strike the ball because it was hurting him.
It just makes you think, like, if him and Son last season were playing through injuries, what was going on at the football club? It's just, I don't know.
I think it's sometimes based on the player, though. I think there are a lot of players that hate sitting out injured, and they just will do almost anything to convince themselves or, you know, the medical team that they can push through it and they can get through it. I think Sonny happens to be one of those. I think Harry Kane happened to be one of those as well. Højbjerg is one of those. I think Richarlison is also one of those. We have a few in the team, and they do exist, you know, guys that might pick up, you know, a pretty bad swollen ankle or something like that, or, you know, might end up, you know, twisting their knee, but will try to push themselves for 20 or 30 minutes, even if they can't feel it, you know, or something like that. They just want to be out there, and they don't want to feel like they, you know, can't contribute anymore to the team. They just have that sort of competitive edge where even if they are being paid, you know, massive amounts, you know, a week, like they still enjoy playing, you know, the game, and they still enjoy competing and being a part of something together. So I don't know. There's something behind, I think, the fact that maybe Richie and Sonny and some of these guys might have pushed themselves through injuries when they really shouldn't have, and then we didn't have the context behind it, or didn't have, you know, the knowledge that that was the case. So then we're judging them based off full fitness, and it just leads to this, you know, kind of confusing sort of, you know, summary of, you know, in Richarlison's case, his career, because it is confusing. It's like, when has he actually really been fully fit? How long has he had to do this? You know, and now that he is fully fit and all of a sudden he has banged in this brace and did have a good performance, you know, were we maybe too harsh on him in the past? It's all a bit confusing. In Sonny's case, even when he's had injury, I guess he's still banged in lots of goals. So I guess we, you know, have been lucky in that case, but it does seem to be something that's common with a lot of players.
Well, he didn't score a lot last season. I think that's why, you know, the questions came around. Was Son washed up? Was he finished? You know, so, you know, the injury did have a
That's fair.
detrimental last season. But look, Jack, I think there's an element of what you said is absolutely spot on. Every player that's hungry to play, wants to play week in, week out, they will say, look, I'm fine. Get playing me out there. There's also an element of the manager putting their arm around him and go, look, how long can you give me this weekend? I don't want to play a donkey that's sitting there behind you. I don't trust him. You know, so there's also that element of it as well, 100%. But what no one can deny is that we've had far many players playing through a lot of injuries. And for me, it comes down to squad depth, you know, that they're just being rolled out there because managers simply don't trust other individuals, you know, that's in the squad to pick them, because they know once they do, inevitably the end of their time at Tottenham is coming. But look, on to the question.
The question about the perfect goal, Dave. Like, you know, and this could save our season, right? That Spurs have had sort of a tough time, you know, scoring recently. It's because everybody thinks we're trying to score the perfect goal. Could Richarlison save our season by just being the guy that we don't need to score a perfect goal with somebody like him in the box? You know, he can tap it in with his knee, with his nose. You know, he doesn't care.
Look, in order to sort of find a solution to the problem, you have to ask the question, why are Tottenham trying to score the perfect goal? Why are the wingers constantly cutting inside and coming back, playing in front of the fence and not getting to the byline and crossing the ball? Okay, well, the reason why is because they have nobody in the box to cross it to. Even if Son is in the box, he doesn't make them runs towards the near post or the far post. He's just sort of lurking in there. But the reason why Son doesn't do it is because he's not a natural striker. As much as people so badly want him to be a striker, he's not a striker. He's played his whole career off the left-hand side. It's where he's made his name. When he's coming up against 6'4", 6'5" lads, he just gets bullied off the ball. And we know this. We've seen it happen to him, you know, last season and seasons gone by. If it's a physical battle, Sonny's losing all day. But if he gets time to turn and run at the players, he's gonna make them lose all day. But the reason why, you know, we changed tact against Newcastle is because Posta Koga knew that. We need that presence in the box, you know. Everyone's asking questions of the wingers and thinking they're the problem. But when both wings are having the same problem, you have to ask why, you know. Then you also look at it. When Richardson has played this season, whether it's been off the left or through the middle, he finds himself in goal-scoring opportunities. Why? Because he knows the movements of a striker that they make. He knows it's not just one movement, by the way. It's double movements. I've seen in his first goal against Newcastle. Make no mistake about it. Son is the reason why we won the Newcastle game. But Richardson has that presence in the box. You know, that fox in the box. He knows where to sniff out a chance. Son doesn't quite know that. Son is constantly looking for the ball at the feet to get turned and try and make something happen. That's why a lot of games we've ended up having to take a lot of our shots on the edge of the area or outside the box. Jack, I remember saying to you, even on a 10-game winning streak, as much as we're playing well, that front line does not look right. This isn't sustainable with that front line. Something has to change. But the reason why it worked at Newcastle is because it's balanced. We're playing players in their natural positions. Brennan Johnson on the right, Son back out to the left, and Richarlison through the middle. In weeks gone by, we've tried Richarlison on the left, Johnson on the left, you know, Son always down the middle, Kulu out on the right, you know, and stuff like that. We're not playing players in their natural position. The ultimate part of Ange ball is he does want these wingers to take on the fullbacks, get the balls in behind the back line, try and get to the byline and pull it back if you can. That's the ultimate where Ange ball wants to take this. Sonny even spoke about after the game, for anyone that tries to call me deluded, when he spoke about Richarlison, he said the reason why Richardson works so well is because he just has that natural movement of a striker that I just don't have. You know, he's got that better movement than me. Son said that after the game as well. So that's the reason why, Jack, for me. But look,
Even
I
Sonny
think
played down his own height, I think. I think he was being a little too humble about some of it. He was just, but you're right, because he was just saying, listen, like I can do a job up there, but I'm not the same as Richarlison. Like Richarlison does things that I simply cannot in there. And just to back you up a bit further, I was watching back the game actually, Dave, and whoever it was on the NBC side of things, or maybe you guys had the same coverage or the same analyst, but I'm not sure if the analyst was
I
a
didn't
big
have any
Everton.
analyst. I predicted it was going to happen. I am the analyst.
The guy was he could have been a big Everton fan or something. Maybe that's why he was so complimentary all the time of Richarlison. But he did keep saying throughout the game that he said this is the movement that they've been needing in the box and these sort of things. And he kept saying that kind of just throughout the game, just to back you up. So this was, clearly somebody else that sort of thought that Spurs had needed somebody just to be that more fox in the box, physical type player roaming around there. And even too with Richie, like straight away when the game gets started, he's immediately practically headbutting, the opposition center back and, just causing, all this nuisance that Sonny, of course, is never going to try to do or anything because, he's far more of a, kind of a cultured type player than Richie is. And that's why I actually think Richie could solve our problem of trying to score the perfect goal, because he doesn't really care about scoring the perfect goal. He's the guy who's going to basically throw his face at the ball, throw his teeth at the ball in case, it can go into the back of the net. He really isn't much for the pretty goals. Even Sonny was sort of, making a bit fun of his finishing, right? On both of the occasions that weren't exactly the prettiest of finishes. And I think his sort of presence, his sort of movement, his just, kind of sure, just what he brings that we hadn't been having in those games is going to allow us to not have to try to create this perfect goal every time, this perfect cutback or something like that. We can just, whip a ball into the box from Pedro Porro, gets deflected, and it's right there for Richarlison just to tap it home. And it will be based off our hard work. It's not to say that we're not going to still dominate teams. We're not going to still create tons of great goals and great chances. But if we don't end up burying some of those great chances and some of those, amazing goal opportunities, we will need just to have somebody that can just sort of tap it over the line, just be somebody that can be there for whatever, opportunity arises. And I think Richie is actually going to help us in that, probably more so than actually Sonny would through the middle. And then just seeing on the left, we kind of been joking that we hadn't actually seen probably that convincing of a left winger so far this season. Actually at Spurs, Richie, weirdly enough, might have been the most convincing so far when it came to left wing performances. And now that we have Sonny back there, we don't really need to have that conversation at least as much, because Solomon was okay, Brian Hill was okay, Johnson seems to really frustrate people out on the left. So we've kind of just had, some, difficulties with who do we even want to play out there. And just it almost seems to work for both parties, having Sonny on the left, Richie through the middle. And then also I think in general, we could be solving that, constantly trying to score an easy goal type of situation. Yeah.
I just want to add quickly, I think when some players up front, other players have to sacrifice. When some players out on the left wing, no one has to sacrifice. And what I mean by that is, in games gone by, Brennan Johnson and Kulu could have easily hit the byline and start putting balls across the box. I've seen wingers do that before, and they're just pointing at the striker. Well, where I've done my job. They didn't do that. They continuously came inside to try and help the way we were doing things, and they got heavily criticised for it. But when Son's out on the left wing, and this is where I'm sort of a bit annoyed at the situation we find ourselves in, because although we tried to sell Harry Kane and steer away from being a one-man team in the attack, we're still a one-man team with Sonny. When Son plays out on the left, he's still going to score you goals from the left wing. He always has done his whole career. But he's going to create for you. He's going to drive at players. That's what we have been missing. Someone that is direct, that gets on the ball and is direct. They just drive at players. They can take 1, 2, 3 players out the game with one run. And in order for that to end up being effective, you have to have that guy in the box as well that you can ultimately cross the ball to for the assist. So, look, I actually think Son, for me, offers the team far much more out on the left-hand side when he does up front. I know plenty of people out there are going to disagree with me. That's absolutely fine. I would say, before you're very quick to disagree with me, ask yourself, why did Ange Posta Koga make the change then?
Why did Ange Posta Koga give Dave a ring before he put out his predicted lineup? That's what you should be asking, because clearly you got some inside scoop on it. Just going to take some comments, and then maybe if we had an extra thought, we certainly can, but we could move into part 3. Jason Bell saying, I've always had doubts on Richarlison, but also hope with the rest of the squad playing well and threatening to score and providing service to Richie, he could just be do enough for the job. Ed Sweeting saying, to be fair to Richie, he played mostly on the right actually last season, not even his favorite position. Dislodging Harry Kane was always going to be an impossible task, plus the injuries too. He got 13 Premier League goals twice at Everton. Jadlock74 saying, save the pennies on a striker and get a midfield player to fill the void that's going to be left by our AFCON/Asian Cup players leaving. Skip is not the guy. I do not believe Skip is the guy, but I think we still need players up top there. Dreadlock74. And then Sonny or Jason Bell saying, Sonny can be a striker in a counter-attacking system or in a wide open game where the opposition leaves space behind them. That's what I think too. That's why probably too sometimes with South Korea, why he's been so deadly, because against maybe teams where they do end up sitting back, he is deadly, you know, with that space and behind that they can just hit for him. So it's a decent point there. Yeah.
Just on that, he makes an absolutely fantastic point. But the way we play, and the more we show teams we can continue to play that way, the more teams are going to set up low block against us, bar maybe the top 4, the top 6, because they fancy themselves. But everyone else outside of that will come and sit low block. So we have to find the answers now to it before it becomes a regular pattern.
Absolutely. And it's actually going to be the opposite of that, sadly. So it just doesn't suit Sonny. But I think time to move into part 3 here and ask ourselves a question here and move into some other business, as well as everybody who's still listening with us. We do appreciate it. Please, please, please get your questions, thoughts, anything that, you know, silly, you know, interesting, serious, whatever it is that might be on your mind. We will save a little bit of time just to, you know, have a little bit of discussion on whatever you guys have on your mind who are still listening towards the end of the show. But into part 3, former Swansea midfielder and South Korean international Ki Sung-young came to Hotspur Way to spend a day with Ange and his coaching staff to shoot ideas and discuss tactics. Rumor is that Ki is looking to get into coaching soon, which is very nice to hear. Which manager, past or present, would you like to spend a whole day with, Sonny? And take that as, you know, maybe you end up only spending a 9 to 5 to them, or if you want, maybe you end up waking up with them and going to bed, you know, a whole day of just hanging out. So which manager and cuddling towards the end, which manager would you cuddle the most with?
Can I pick 2? Because
yes.
To pick their brain and just see how they work day to day, I'd go with Pep Guardiola, because he's my favorite manager of all time. Just think he's a genius. I'd just like to see how he negotiates, like making tea and stuff like that. Like, is it all like? Because I don't know if you've seen the meme, or people have seen that meme where they compare Pep Guardiola with Sean Dyche, and it's like. And it's a video that's split in half, and it's like 4-4-2, Rodri in the and then on the other side it's got Dyche just going hoof it up, big bloke heads it down, and I was just like, that's great. But like, imagine Pep Guardiola just like doing dinner and being like, right, I need to strategically plan this out, and he's just moving the board around or something like that. I think it'd just be entertaining. And then in a fun regard, sadly I haven't met him yet, and I thought I would by working at TalkSport. Harry Redknapp. He's just a terrific fella. He's just one of the loveliest blokes in football. Just a fun guy to be around, and it means that. But the only problem about that is you jump in the car with him, and he'd want to be hanging out the window, being like, "So, any transfer tips?" And he always want to tell you the story about how we had to get rid of that Portsmouth striker. Honestly, if I had £1 for every time I've heard him on the show or the radio, being like, I was trying to. Yeah, I'm bloody getting rid of him. I said, I'll drive you to the airport. And I was just like, I've heard this 15 times. But yeah, they're my answers.
Those are 2 great answers. Dave, do you have any managers? I actually like the idea that Sonny did too. So I'd say go, you know, if you have 2 or 3 that you would throw in there, feel free to do so. Don't limit yourself to one.
Being honest, I actually misread the question. I thought it was 1 past and 1 present, so I have come with 2 that I'd like to spend the day with.
Nice, well done.
That's amazing.
Even better.
Shows how well I got on at school, eh?
Overachiever. Overachiever. Get your credit.
First of all, Sonny, I did have the chance to meet Harry Redknapp. He's an absolute gentleman, man. He's you know, gave me a lot of time to ask him a few questions and stuff like that. An absolute gentleman. So because I've already met him, I don't think I need to re-meet him. So for me, the one of the present is Sir Alex Ferguson. And what I'd like to know of him, is just sort of the insight on how he ended up getting so much total control over Man United. How he also his identification for young players. I mean, the amount of young players he's filtered through into the game that have gone on and had sort of great careers from Man United. The ones that weren't at Man United, he's identified and bring in, and he's had them in and around the team 10, 11 sort of years at Man United. So on that, also, how he managed to handle a squad, but year in, year out, keep them going for success over 20 years. How do you keep that hunger? How he sort of pinpoints the player to be able to rotate the squad, to bring in a fresh guy, to increase everybody's levels. There's so much that guy had as a manager that I'd absolutely love to learn off him. And then all that man management side of things combined with, I'd love to spend the day with ANGE Posta Koga and the tactics. I've already done a lot of research into it. The training sessions, I think he's worked out that a match with all the stoppages lasts about 70 minutes. So the players will do intense training for 70 minutes, non-stop, no breaks, this, that, and the other to sort of mimic the match day and stuff like that. But also, I'd love to see how he manages in such a modern day where players need to be cuddled and tucked into bed and, their dinner up in the airplane, feed their dinner and stuff like that. How he manages to still get the love and affection from players, but keep his distance. So between them two managers, I think you combine and make the ultimate manager, someone that's ultimately more exciting than Pep Guardiola.
Oh, that's what I'd love to hear. Make somebody that's even better than Pep Guardiola. Combined, two managers to do so. I'm going to steal a little bit of what Dave has done and go for one maybe past and present. I would say, in all seriousness, it would be very cool to actually go all the way back in time to the days of Bill Nick and just see how different it was back then when it came to managing, when it came to player dynamics, just all that sort of thing, right? Tactics were different back then. The way that teams sort of set up initially to how the games ended. It felt like teams in the beginning of games back then were very, sort of conservative. But then by the end of 90 minutes, it just felt like it was just so to end, those sort of games. So I'm also curious how just sort of tactical battles were. Even just the day to day, right? You didn't have all these like coaches of methodology, like all these extra medical teams and things like that, right?
Drinking
I wonder what it was like. You could have, a night out before the game, but you still had to, put in your absolute all. I even when I asked, I think it was on my tour of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I even asked like Martin Chivers, just sort of about some of the games that he had played in, like in Europe against teams like Red Star Belgrade, and like, what was that like, going behind like the Iron Curtain, and things like that, like during those sort of times and whatnot. And he just said like, yeah, it was very cold in Belgrade, and he had this sort of like dark look in his eyes, as he like said it. And I just think that would be just for the sake of, we just don't know what that must have been like, maybe plenty of people who are wise enough, certainly might, because they might have lived through those days. But I definitely, as a younger sort of football fan, would not. So just for the sheer reason of everything would be new and everything just would be, I've never seen it before type of thing, I would go for that, to spend time with Bill Nick during those sort of great days of our football club. Modern day one, maybe not much of a surprise from me or from those who might know me a bit better. I'm a huge Jose fan. I've always loved the guy. I think I think his personality is infectious. I think his sort of charisma as a player, as a manager, is infectious. I think he's always been very handsome. I think he's always been very funny. He's just a guy that I always wanted to, kind of just be in the same room with, to be honest, and be on the same team with. He seems like one of those guys where it's like you would, if he's on your side, you'd love to have him on your side. If he's against you, you'd absolutely hate him because he is also a complete shit house as well. And that's also what I kind of like about Jose Mourinho. And so plenty of the just sort of day-to-day runnings of the club, just be curious, his sort of lax attitude about stuff. And then when he gets super serious, about other things, that would just be fun to see him joking around. Then 2 seconds later, screaming at somebody. Just all that sort of thing would be quite entertaining. And also when it comes to cuddling with a manager, having a beer with a manager, all those sort of things, he seems like actually the right candidate because he's just a funny guy. And just seems like somebody that, outside of football actually is a pretty normal person compared to a lot of these other managers who I would not really give that sort of, maybe, title to. So yeah, Jose for me. And also I just think he would have plenty of like hilarious stories about, people like Balotelli, Zlatan, Pepe's, Ramos's of the world, all the brilliant, all the Luke Shaw's, all the brilliant players of Paul Pogba, all the brilliant players that he's either, cursed or hated, or players that he made the best out of. Would be amazing to, hear about that. And, during his, times, winning, times with trophies of Porto and Inter, just all that sort of stuff would be pretty crazy to hear. So yeah, those would be my two. Those would be my two. Jose would be more just for the cuddles and for the beers and for the laughs, but maybe some football included. But Bill Nick really for more kind of serious reasoning.
It'd be some man just spend time with Bill Nick. That'd be absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What would have been like, just to also see like how they prepare for games, just so different, I imagine, to what it is now. Like what they probably warm up for like an hour, like
more interaction with the fans and everything else as well,
all of it. And also the atmospheres were so different too, right? In the stands and the stadium, all that type of thing. It just be surreal. And the fact it's just so different to what it is today. But yeah, everybody, let us know what yours might be in the comments if you're listening to that back in part 3. Please, everybody, if you want to get some comments in, get some thoughts in. Like I said, if you did want us to have maybe a quick chat or a quick answer to anything that might still be on your mind, we do really appreciate everybody that has tuned in at any stage throughout this podcast today. But we are going to be wrapping things up. Champions League is almost on anyways. So, Sonny, upcoming content for you?
What have I got? So I have that striker video that I was talking about where I've sort of revealed who it was, but if people have tuned in and out, they might not know. My Gallagher and Celso transfer video I've done. I reacted to Newcastle. Got loads of stuff going on the channel, so come on over. I'm a quarter Irish probably.
You're getting more Irish every day.
Yeah.
The time you spend on here.
I won't do the accent because that's probably a bit rude, isn't it? So I nearly did. I was like, oh no.
You could do the accent. I actually enjoy listening to people do accents and stuff like that.
A good American accent. Yeah, I love a good American
Sonny's
accent.
title will be absolutely plastered all underneath the video.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
Sorry, Jack. Well, I think I'm lagging. Go on.
No. We're saying the same thing. Yeah. I was going to make a joke saying I would love to hear an American accent, impersonation, maybe from some. We'll get that from him next time. We'll get that from him next time. We'll force it out of him, even if it's good or bad. But please, everybody, yes, do check out Sonny Talk Spurs. Will be in the description when we make this public for everybody as well. And do check out all of his upcoming content. He does a very good job with his busy schedule, putting out whatever he can. And also, I must say, does a very good job on the graphics, thumbnails, all that good stuff. So please do check him out. And he's helping us out a lot by, continuing to show up to this podcast and making it a very enjoyable one. But please, everybody, if you can, smash that like button for us. Maybe take some questions here. One of them, just quickly, Jason Bell, maybe asking if Santa could be a part of the Flat Cap Army. He definitely could be. You could see that maybe during the off season, it's probably a bit nicer to wear a flat cap than it really is to wear that red one, all year round.
Have you seen the picture of Ange as Santa? Have you guys seen that?
Yeah. I liked my favorite one was him in the club when he was like the club where he has like the hairy chest, like
that one.
Yeah, that one is great.
Oh, Sonny, send me that. Yeah, I need to keep that as my screensaver.
My favorite is the one like with the disco look that he had for like the nightclub or something, and it's him.
I haven't seen that one. You have to send me that one.
Terrific. That one's terrific.
My dad sent me that one.
Jesse Fusion saying, "What do you make of extending Forster before the summer?" I actually thought this was a good move. I feel like I'm glad that Spurs are avoiding the whole Ramsdale Raya situation when it comes to backup keepers. Just seems like unnecessary drama. And also, probably in most cases, you are going to play your number one keeper, even if you're going to have 60 to 70 games in a season. Yeah, maybe your backup keeper might get 10 of those, but he's not going to get more than that usually. And so you do just usually stick with your best keeper because, any chance that, the opposition may have to score and you have a worse guy in goal that's not as good at either saving it or with his feet, you will suffer and you will end up maybe having some drop points or results that don't really seem necessary if you have a much better keeper that's sort of sitting on the bench. So this makes sense to me. Forster also seems to be a very good squad dynamic type of guy. Everybody likes him, seems to get along with everybody, seems to really like his time at Tottenham Hotspur, has nice things to say about the club, has nice things to say about sort of the dynamic here. Doesn't seem to be much of a distraction type player either, like I sort of am alluding to, like just good sort of guy for the general squad dynamic. And I think when he has been called upon, has done well, considering he is the backup keeper. Like, he actually had a better season last season than Lloris did. He's better with his feet than Lloris was. And if you were to even look at shot stopping ability, I think he is also kind of maybe better than Lloris at this moment in time. Not saying that's his best part of his game or anything, but I do feel like he's better than Lloris, and I don't want it to be so close like Raya and Ramsdale that ends up leading to this silly drama. Even the Binder Onana thing is a bit of drama, I think, that we could avoid.
Yeah. For me, I just think it also makes sense in the fact that, everything you said, Jack, which is absolutely spot on, but also it's not an area we need to be going out and spending money in this summer. We need another centre back in here. We probably have a few other areas of the squad we need to address. So, it really is. And I'm not one for kicking positions, down the road, but this is one that we can afford to. I'm confident with Fraser Forster's ability, if needed, to come in. And also, what other option have we got? Alfie Whiteman ain't good enough. Brandon Austin ain't good enough. So, for me, it just makes sense all around, my man. Jazzy Fusion will throw this one at you, Sonny. He says, have you heard anything about Tanguy returning early? And if so, does he play during the AFCON when we miss Missouma?
It's going to be an interesting situation, isn't it, in Turkey after what happened the other day with the suspension of football after the refereeing incident, which was absolutely crazy. But no, he's not at the best time out there. But do we want him back? He's just going to sit there and do nothing. I just think the sooner we can get rid of him, the better. He's just, talking about Forster there not being a distraction. This guy might be one of the biggest distractions you can have in the squad. He's the definition of all the gear, no idea, all the ability, and he just hasn't done anything with it. And I thought he could have had a good season this season, like clean slate and all that, but he's proven that, every club he's been to since joining us, Lyon again, Napoli, and now out in Galatasaray, it's just not worked out whatsoever. And Galatasaray, I can't even say, they've got a good team there. Sahar, Mertens, Icardi. They've got some good, European pedigree in that team, and he still can't get in. He can't get in or make a way. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything if he's going to return early, but let's just keep him away.
He's end on toast at the minute. Let's be brutally honest, though. We've got to stop doing this with Tottenham. At Tottenham, we keep doing this. We loan players out, and we wish for them to come back here and start performing. The reality is, the reason why we've loaned them out is because they weren't performing in the first place. Name me the last player that we've loaned out that's come back here and hit the ground on the start performing. Don't say Celso, because he was dropped at the first opportunity when Posta Koga had numbers. So don't give me Celso whatsoever. 2 games doesn't make up for it. But name me a player that we've loaned out and has had a resurrection from the dead. There's been barely any in terms of players that we spent money on, big money, to come in here and do a job, loan them out, and then bring them back to perform. You also have to ask the question, why has every manager been so quick to offload them and get rid of them? At the end of the day, I get people may like the guy, they may see the talent in there, and let's be brutally honest, he could be a world-class player. He could be the star of that France team if he wanted to, but he chooses not to. And for me, Posta Koga, more now than ever, we got a manager that actually looks into the character of a player. That character ain't right, you ain't playing for Tottenham Hotspur, so he's never going to get an opportunity under Ange Posta Koga. His opportunity was the summer going out on pre-season tour. Done jack shit with it. I know a lot of people criticised me when I said about his body language walking in at that video at the start of the season, but the reality is he doesn't want to be here. Just sack him off.
And it'd be another great reason to spend a day with Jose, because then you could ask him about what those runs were like, with Tanguy and Dembele, and whether he had to keep Tanguy up with him, or maybe the other way around, hopefully, and that Jose had to keep up with him. But I bet it was maybe more Jose encouraging Tanguy to keep up the pace on those jogs and runs. But yeah, that's going to be a future problem for sure, and going to be far more dramatic than Dane Scarlet coming back in that case. But yeah, I think we might leave it there, everybody. Really do appreciate, once again, everybody for getting in their thoughts on the game and getting in their thoughts throughout this podcast. Just everybody that is a member, we do appreciate you guys, because we're trying to give you whatever benefits and whatever bonuses that we can. And maybe this is one of them. You just get to have the podcast with us, get to see it live as we're making it, and also get to give some feedback, bounce back and forth while we're recording. But we do really appreciate you all. I think we'll leave you there. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. Head on over to Sunny Talk Spurs, please. Check out all of his content coming up. And yeah, we never stop, Dave.
We never stop. Forest Friday. Get the lumberjack outfits on. Jack, you should be pumped. Richie had his best game of the season last year in his Spurs jersey against Forest.
I'm adding him to my fantasy team. Yeah, I'm adding him to my fantasy team. He's
our very own Robin Hood.
Bold. He's going to be a lumberjack, Mr. Richie will be. We'll see everybody. Come on, you Spurs. Big Andrew Trust.
Oh, wow.